Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Let's give a warm welcome to our main speaker, Eric.
My name's Eric and I'm an alcoholic. And I don't know how to do this at all, really. Plus the fact that, I've only just started being able to speak again because about 3 weeks ago I had all my teeth taken out and these implants put in. And so it's all kind of feels funny in there. And I'm trying to kind of overcome this lisp and a whistle, which you can hear. So... and actually, some of it is quite nice because I sound like people that I used to admire, like Otis Rush and Ray Charles, who used to sing with a lisp. So that's cool. But one of the great things about this was that one of my dreads as a practicing alcoholic was dentistry. It was like a lot of other things that were really just not available to me. I had such the dysfunctionality in my life was so pronounced that I didn't even see a toothbrush until I was about 18. It was like very poor stuff, all that raised with, in a 2 up, 2 down, where there was an outside zinc bath and no bathroom. And so, but I remember being in class at school about 10 years old, and the back of one of my front teeth fell off. And that's where a lot of my kind of disease started to kick in because I started lying. And I think I'd already kind of developed the thing that, Lauren and other people have talked about, that thing about changing the way I felt. I started changing the way I felt right then, and obviously before, because my teeth fell off because of sugar. And I started eating sugar. I can't even remember when I was probably 5 years old. Sugar on bread and butter. And that was like, it was like a post-war thing in England. That's what you did. Poor families did that. They used to put sugar in milk, too, to feed the children so that the children would drink the milk. And it was part of bad education, all kinds of just dysfunctionality. And so I was kind of set up. I was ready for this stuff. And there were so many other ways that it was coming into my life. I lived in a village in the country in England where we had this thing called the British Legion, which was like a veterans society, and I would see the ground. We would, as kids, would be taken and we'd be stuck outside, put outside with a packet of crisps or whatever you call them here, potato chips and a Coke or something, and they would go inside and they would change. The adults would change, and they'd go in kind of quiet and reserved and miserable, and you'd hear them changing inside into kind of happy, uninhibited, gregarious people, and they'd be having the time of their lives, and then they'd come out, and then they'd be, once they were kind of out again, and they'd take us home, there would be a shift back somehow, and it would be a little bit more pronounced. It'd be a bit more kind of aggressive and sullen, and it was kind of like that was like a little microcosm of what my kind of drinking was like. That I would be, just shy, withdrawn, terrified, fear-based human being who once I got something inside of me became, anybody and was up for anything. And then as it started to wear off, I became malevolent and violent and aggressive and miserable. And in the end, suicidal. And that's what... And I, the one thing that is, that I go over and over in my head, and whenever I think about what I'm going to say at a meeting, is that apart from being blessed, I wonder why I was chosen for this and why we get to be chosen. I wouldn't even think about how that affects you, what you think about that. But I know for me, I don't understand why some people don't want this. I mean, I've done some 12-step work where I've brought people to the door and I've seen them turn away, walk away. And I've seen others die, deliberately die when confronted with the whole notion of getting honest and looking at their past and trying to do the work that is involved. And I don't understand why they didn't want to do it, and why we get to be fortunate enough to the miracle I'm talking about is the wanting. That's the miracle in my life, is that I wanted this enough to do the hard work. And I found it pain. I'm sure we've all found it pain. I'm sure the newcomers find it very, very pain. I can't even remember. I mean, that seems like a fog, like there's a fog between me now and where I was at then. That was because I know I was just driven by fear. And like, I remember coming to meetings trying to impress everybody with the fact that I'd been around for a while. So, how does a newcomer do that? I wanted everyone, it was impossible. I wanted to pretend like I'd done the steps. I wanted to pretend like I was, 3 or 4 years sober when I was only 6 weeks. And that, the pain of that, the pain of that self-consciousness, of the pain of asking for help, that's, to me, was very, very hard work. I don't know anybody who seriously works on this program who finds it easy, because it's not supposed to be, because it requires that we put in front of the other. And the most courageous people in the world, in my book, are recovering alcoholics, the people that walk through that door. And on a date, and that's still the same for me now, driving up here tonight. I have to hand it over. I have to hand it over to my higher power, because, and that's easy for me now. Just say, I don't know what to do. Get me there. I mean, I pray about like each mile of the road that I'm driving to get me there safe. Get me something to eat. Let the people be nice to me. And then and try to keep me from talking about what I think. Because that is a complete waste of time, and they all know, we are, it's like we're all kind of experts on one fucking thing or another. But so, and I just hope that he, sometimes he answers most of my. He got me here. It's like, I think it was Ted said that, that whole thing about, I'm paying back, because I prayed all through my drinking to be got out of every situation I was in, to be relieved of this, to be got through that, and I'll never do it again, and I'd do it again, and I'd ask, and I was always delivered. Now, and that's the other thing, is why was I, and so and the thing is, it really is none of my business. That's the kind of the kernel of it all, is that I don't think I'm supposed to know. And whether I think I'm supposed to know or not doesn't make any difference, because I'm not going to ever find out. I don't think I will. It's only when I look back on the path that I've already traveled that I see how, when I've been there meeting that person, there's been some kind of connection where they meet another person that somehow brought to the program or something, and then I see that every girlfriend I've ever had, or every journey I've ever taken, has been in order for me to do some. It's all about service, and the thing is that I can't govern that. I have no control over it, and really all I've got to remember to do is just show up, and the rest is done for me. Because I don't, the minute I try to figure out how this works, I don't need to come here anymore, and that's a frightening thought. Because I know people that do, and I guess I know some that do, and it's like I'm getting off on a tangent, and they turn into lecturers and they turn into experts, and I'm not. That's not what I want. I like to hear people that are around a long time who still say, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what. I'm frightened, or because then I know that they're human, and I can, because it's like I go back to that thing of authority. I can't be around authority. I need humility. I need humility as an example. I need to see that someone can stay sober a long time and not become authoritative, not become, like a governing body, not become an expert, that they can retain their innocence, that they can be childlike and still be adults, And that's what I find that here. I don't find it anywhere else. And I know there are great people out there without programs who just seem to be on the path, and I do meet them from time to time. But if I want to be guaranteed to that kind of exposure, I come to an AA meeting, and I get it here. And so I mean, my story is very, very simple. I just, I'm just the same as everybody else here. It got hairy. It got good. I crossed the line. It got nasty, and somewhere, And I don't, it was that whole thing about, I knew for a very, very, very long time that I'd crossed that line. I don't remember crossing it, but I knew for at least the last 10 years of my drinking, I think, that I had to stop. And I remember waking up, coming to, and thinking, well, today is the day. I've got to stop this today. And I don't want to tell anybody about that because I don't want to make any promises to anyone. So this is something I'm going to do on my own, and then when I've done it, I can say to somebody, "Look, I've stopped," but I'll just have a drink first to kind of like get the, so that my mind can function, so that I can figure out how I'm going to do it.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
And of course, the first one wouldn't even go down. It would just be my body would reject it, and I'd be dry heaving, and then it would be like, and it was vodka, it was all it could in the end, I'm sure. Most of us know that one. And finally, the third or fourth one would go down, and then I'd be fine. And I'd think, right, now, so how would I go about this? I don't know. I'll take the bottle down to the other room, and I'd move around the house, postponing the actual whatever it was I thought I was going to do, postponing it until the bottle was empty, and I was passed out again. And while I was doing that, I was thinking, well, this afternoon I'll stop, And of course, this afternoon was gone, and I'd wake up and it would be dark, and I wouldn't know whether that darkness was morning or evening. I mean, I didn't know. I'd be at home and I didn't know where I was. I was. And I was married. I had a very successful career, and this has been a great thing for me in my journey, was being able to tell people that acquisition is not it, because by the time I was 23, I was a millionaire. With the gift that God gave me as a musician, I was making money without wanting to make money. I didn't know how to stop it coming in, and I tried very hard, believe me. And I would leave every band. The minute they thought they wanted to be on TV, I was gone, There was some, I actually would see the anonymous part of the program was very familiar because somehow or another I wanted that for me anyway. I wanted to be able to be good at something, but without anybody knowing it. But I did want them to know at the same. It was like that whole paradox of, I don't want you to know, but I want the kudos. And I had madness, insanity even then. So, but the whole thing about that was that I didn't want to be rich. I didn't want to be successful. And as long as I had that going on, I could not stop it. And I'm sure it's, people that want money, want success, it just doesn't happen because there's like a paradox in there. But I do know that having all that stuff, having a beautiful wife and a great home and a career that just shone, no matter what I tried to do to destruct the whole thing, it kept getting better and better. And in spite of all that, at the end of each day, I was considering suicide. And now, see, how does that make sense? That, and I know that there are people who probably come into this program without very much, who think that this is going to get them that, and maybe it will, but for sure, along with it come a lot of other problems, and some of those things I don't know if I'm ready for now. I mean, I'm still quite, self-destruct. I mean, I do like to self-sabotage a lot, and I still practice that. I still kind of set about trying to undermine it, so that I'm basically so that I can survive really and retain some kind of anonymity. So for that part of me, I'm very lucky and blessed in that I did, for instance, have a fairly strong belief in God when I came here. That was not a problem for me. And I did want to be anonymous. So when people came up to me at meetings and asked for my autograph, it was easy for me to say, no. You know, I'm Eric the alcoholic. And there was a time, I think, where there was definite conflict in it for me, that when I first got sober, which is a long while ago now, it was back in 1981, I went out on the road. You know, I went out on tour, and it sounded like shit, and it was an awful experience. And of course, it was I was in treatment, and everyone said, counselors and fellow patients alike said, don't do anything. It's like that whole thing. Don't do anything. Don't get involved with anybody. Don't make any decisions. Don't do anything for a year. And within 6 months, I was touring America on a massive scale, hating every minute of it, and being around very, very dangerous situations all the time.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom?
And really kind of feeling miserable. And I suppose, I was on the way back, and I relapsed as a result of that. And I went back into treatment, and in that period of time, being back in treatment, I had to confront the idea that, that was, I was either going to come back here as an alcoholic above all, or I was probably going to die, And if this was, I have it in spades, this disease. I really do. I have it on every level. I project all the time. I'm a fear-based guy. Shame. I go into shame spirals at the drop of that. I'm getting better. Like Lauren said, I'm improving. But I don't do anything. All I do is I come to meetings and I pray that God will do most of the rest. I will try. I work the steps, but I'm very conscious of the fact that my defects are not really mine to control. I've never been able to, like someone else said, I don't know how to hand it over. I still don't know quite how to hand it over, other than to try and help somebody else. When I get into that predicament about self-obsession, I kind of got a little switch where I think, well, think about somebody else. Go and do something for somebody else. That's my way of handing it over, but I don't know if that's the right, it's the way I do it. But for me, it's tough, and the thing about where I've had to work very hard is being, having this kind of celebrity as a musician, and being like on the media, and there's recently been a thing where I've put together a center in the Caribbean to help people, and I realize that that's not an AA project. I've had to kind of really work hard on my boundaries around this stuff. Treatment centers are not AA. That's like they work with the 12-step program and they advise, but nevertheless, and it's still a separate issue. And when I was confronted with these people that that I put together to make this thing work, they said, well, you're going to go out there and have to go out there. You're our only asset. Nobody knows. You got to go and tell them that it's here. And you got to, and in order to do that, well, I said, well, what am I going to do? I go on 60 Minutes, do the Today Show. I do like all kinds of fucking magazine and newspaper articles. And in the course of that, I'm on the edge the whole time of breaking my anonymity. And that's been a real tough thing. And, that's given me, that whole exercise gave me a great learning curve about how important my anonymity is to me. And it is really about my boundary, about, how much because now I've got to the point where I love this thing we have. I love it above all. And even when I say that, I can feel a tingle coming through me, because it's a spiritual thing for me, that what we do and the way we help other people and ourselves in the process is not to be fucked with. It is not to be compromised. Yeah. And I've been, and it's like, it's amazing how when people are faced with that, how it tantalizes people. I remember my sponsor being involved in a kind of sort of business project where, they had a long conference. with these other people that he was involved with on some business thing, and it was all folding. It was getting crazy, and somehow or another he sorted it all out. And after the meeting, one of these guys came up to him and said, you know, I don't know how you did that, and it was brilliant. But what's your secret? What are you going on? And he said, well, it's nothing to do with me, and it is a secret, you know. And that was like, that's what it. And I love that, you know, and that guy, you know, he's got 20 years and he is like a saint to me. But he's one of those guys that says, I don't know. I mean, I just go to meetings, you know, and I love that. But it is very difficult. I've had to do a lot of work going to talk to people in treatment centers, saying, like, you know, that primary purpose thing, you know, when we read the preamble, our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. That is my primary purpose. And I've had to, you know, my primary purpose is not making sure this fucking treatment center works. My primary purpose is, if I get the opportunity, going in there and telling the alcoholics in there, the recovering people that want to stay sober, my story, not what I think, or not, you know, please get your other pals to come in because we need the money, you know. But seriously, just to be there so they can see that I'm a guy with a load of money who's had a great career, but who still occasionally thinks about suicide, and, you know, although that's got a lot better, I can assure you. But that is not it. That it is about peace of mind, which comes from other people, comes from our common welfare. And that's what I always rely on, you know, that in any given difficult situation, there's two options for me. One is to isolate and try and figure it out and eventually fucking self-destruct and go down the road that I've already traveled. The other one is to come here and ask you for what you did when you had the similar experience. And that's the one I've chosen most, and it works. And it is usually, you know, I'll avoid people that try and, you know, proselytize or lecture or tell me what they think. I will say, well, tell me what you did when this happened to you, so that I get the experience. And usually it is the simplest thing imaginable, you know, and that's what works. And so that's it for me. I mean, I flew all this way to come to this meeting, and and I'm really glad to be here. I had no idea. I remember actually driving up the coast thinking that about 20 years ago I came up here to make a record at a place called Shangri-La. And man, is it different now? I mean, I don't know if it's still there, the place, but some of those guys are dead, you know. One of them's and this was a group called The Band, you know, that was a great band, and one of them hung himself, and he was like, we drank together. I mean, he was like a Grand Marnier freak. He drank Grand Marnier out of the bottle, and I love, man, that's a man's way of drinking, you know. And he hung himself, and I've seen so many people, lost so many friends who didn't get this light shone in their lives. And which brings me back to that thing, is like God somehow or another chose us. And now we get to choose. And that's the other thing about this program that I love the most, is that I have a choice today. And like Lorne also said, I can look back and see that it's all been choice. And it still is, you know. I can choose. And I am responsible for my own happiness and for my own life. I am totally responsible today. I don't blame anymore. I try to still on occasion, because I am an alcoholic, and I will always act in that typical way. My first response is usually to, you know, fuck it, it's his fault or her fault, and then I modify, and then I act. I act usually on the modification. And for that, I'm really grateful. It's been almost 12 years for me, and I guess I've got another 12 to go before I'll have paid back my debt, and I hope a bit more, you know. I don't ever really think about this as being a long, long road. It's still one day at a time for me. I really don't make too many plans. I try to take the program to everything I do, the way I love, the way I live, the way I work. it's about spontaneity and being in the moment. And we're very, very lucky to be given this gift. And I'm very grateful for you listening to me tonight. Thanks. Thanks for letting me share.
Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.